More strange tales about Dr. Chan, an upright and honest rural doctor known by everyone near and far. Whenever anyone in the village or surrounding areas had a headache, mild fever, or minor illness, they would immediately think of finding Dr. Chan. And Dr. Chan used medicine appropriately and charged fair prices, so he had a good reputation in the villages around the region. Normally, Dr. Chan practiced medicine carrying a set of silver acupuncture needles. He had his own unique acupuncture method, which often brought miraculous results for intractable diseases. On ordinary days, he also often helped farmers suffering from rheumatoid arthritis with acupuncture to alleviate their pain. One day, Dr. Chan had an appointment with several farming households in the neighboring village to give them acupuncture. The road was not easy to travel, requiring crossing several mountains a distance of over 5 kilometers. Dr. Chan, fearing he would lose time on the road, set out early in the morning. By noon, having covered half the distance, Dr. Chan found a shady spot under a tree to sit down and rest his feet. Just as he sat down, a cool breeze suddenly blew through the forest. Ordinarily, this breeze would have helped Dr. Chan dispel the heat. But strangely, it instead caused a few beads of cold sweat to form on Dr. Chan's forehead, making him feel extremely uneasy. It turned out that with the wind, a sound was also carried. This sound was very faint, but it could be discerned as a cry for help. Dr. Chan looked in the direction the wind was blowing from, thinking to himself, "This desolate place is usually rarely frequented by people. Could this sound be from someone who went up the mountain to cut firewood and met with an accident?" Thinking of something ominous, Dr. Chan immediately stood up and walked in the direction the sound was coming from. The deeper he went, the denser the forest became, to the point where there were no decent paths to follow, yet the cries for help grew clearer and clearer. By now, Dr. Chan could clearly hear someone trembling and crying for help, their voice extremely shaky. The sound grew nearer. When Dr. Chan emerged from the dense forest, a clearing suddenly appeared before him, and in the distance, he could see a mountain cave. The sound was indeed coming from within that cave, but now it was no longer as resonant as before, replaced by a weak, exhausted tone, as if the person crying for help was on the verge of collapse. Dr. Chan did not hesitate further and hurried deeper inside. The cave was not large, just wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. At the end of his vision, there was a faint light, which grew clearer as he went further in. Upon reaching the end of the cave, he stepped into a large open space and finally saw where the sound was originating. In front of him was a pool of black, murky water covering the ground, and in the middle of this pool stood an old man. The old man was hunched over, looking exhausted, panting heavily with each breath, his face grim and desperate. When the old man saw Dr. Chan, the desperation in his eyes lessened considerably. His eyes lit up, and he began to implore the doctor to save him. The old man struggled to speak each word with difficulty, weakly begging Dr. Chan to save him, saying he was about to give out. Seeing the old man in an agitated state, Dr. Chan stepped closer, speaking gently to calm the distressed man, because only when he calmed down would it be easier to help him. As Dr. Chan approached the edge of the black pool, he smelled a very strong, pungent odor, partly like medicine and partly a putrid foul smell of decaying flesh mixed together. Glimmering white objects were faintly visible in the murky black pool. Dr. Chan looked closely and realized they were fragments of skulls and broken bones, which made him immediately abandon the idea of entering the water to rescue the man. Dr. Chan looked at the old man again and asked if he could take a few steps out on his own, to come a little closer to him. The old man tried to lift his leg, but the black pool seemed to have a very strong adhesiveness. Despite using all his strength, he couldn't move even half a step. He looked at Dr. Chan, his eyes helpless, trying to exert himself but only managing to utter broken gasps. However, this method did not bring about a clear effect. Seeing the old man unable to move, Dr. Chan gently consoled him, telling him to endure a little longer. Knowing he couldn't go into the water, he realized he needed to quickly find suitable tools to rescue the man, so he left the cave to search for them. Before long, Dr. Chan returned, carrying a long rattan vine he had chanced upon outside the cave. Then, summoning his strength, he skillfully threw the vine towards the old man. It landed perfectly, one end of the vine falling right next to where the old man was standing. Knowing the old man might not have enough strength to grip the vine tightly, Dr. Chan instructed him to tie it securely around his body to prevent it from slipping. After waiting until the old man had tied it securely, Dr. Chan prepared to pull him out of the black pool. Dr. Chan began to pull the vine, and thanks to his pulling force, the old man gradually managed to take step by step out of the black pool. The black water was very viscous. Dr. Chan had to exert a great deal of effort to pull the old man from the center of the pool, finally bringing him safely to shore. Seeing that he had been saved, the old man's pale, gloomy face immediately showed a touch of color. His savior was right before his eyes, so the old man naturally couldn't help but express his gratitude, kneeling on the ground to thank his benefactor. "Uncle, this is just a small matter. Why must you perform such a ceremony?" Dr. Chan, seeing the old man like this, felt he couldn't accept the gesture and hurriedly helped him up. The old man was somewhat surprised. He said he was only a little over 20 years old, so why did Dr. Chan call him uncle? During the rescue, Dr. Chan had consistently addressed the other person as uncle, but the man felt this form of address was inappropriate and insisted he was only just over 20. When the old man said this, Dr. Chan felt bewildered, his whole body as if falling into a daze. The two stared at each other without speaking, just standing there in silence. Then, as if sensing something, he tremblingly raised his two hands to look at them. A look of extreme horror immediately appeared in the old man's eyes. The aged and wrinkled hands, like those of a man over 70, made him unable to believe his eyes. Immediately afterwards, he touched his face and felt deep wrinkles and rough skin, which horrified him even more. He couldn't recognize whose face it was. Seeing the old man's reaction, Dr. Chan was also extremely astonished. Could it be that the man before him had lost his memory? Nevertheless, he knew he needed to quickly regain his composure. Dr. Chan took a step forward and began to ask about the other person's identity, his name, and where he came from. Hearing Dr. Chan ask about his identity, the old man answered immediately without hesitation. He said his name was Ma. He lived in a small village not far from here, was 22 years old this year, and had been married for 2 years. Faced with the old man's sincere words, which did not seem like lies at all, Dr. Chan felt extremely strange. Immediately after, Dr. Chan seemed to remember something, called the old man to follow him, then turned and walked quickly out of the cave. Although the man didn't know where Dr. Chan was going, he still followed vaguely. Thinking that the person before him might be the only one who could help him escape this situation, he stopped thinking too much and followed the doctor out. After walking for a while, he heard the gurgling sound of flowing water. It turned out Dr. Chan had led him to a small river. Dr. Chan told the old man to look into the water to see his reflection and see if he remembered anything. Hearing this, the old man swallowed a gulp of saliva, his heart suddenly beating faster. Following his benefactor's words, he dragged his heavy steps, slowly approaching the riverbank. When he saw his appearance reflected on the surface of the water, he staggered. and then, as if losing all strength, collapsed to his knees. At this moment, his body felt as if it had been struck by electricity. He involuntarily leaned back, as if he had realized something, his whole body trembling. At the same time, his lost memory suddenly became clear. He pointed at the reflection in the water and began to scream. It was him! It was him! He pointed at the reflection in the water, yelling. He led me into the cave, said there was treasure inside, and that's how I accidentally stepped into that black pool. Hearing this, Dr. Chan knew the man before him had begun to recall something. Looking deeply into his eyes, Dr. Chan calmly told him to seriously and honestly recount everything he remembered. This happened yesterday afternoon. Ma's new wife loved to eat wild game, so after finishing his work, he would take the opportunity to go hunting in the mountains. This area had many wild rabbits and pheasants. Soon Ma had caught several, thinking he could return home early today, so he followed the mountain path back to the village. But suddenly, Ma heard faint cries for help echoing from a distance. The cries sounded very weak, as if the person was in imminent danger. Ma was very familiar with this area. Based on the direction of the sound, he guessed it was coming from a cliff ahead. The cliff there wasn't high, but it was densely covered with weeds, making it very hard to recognize. People had occasionally fallen from there due to a misstep, and the sound seemed like an old man's voice, which made Ma quicken his pace, fearing he wouldn't be in time to save the person. When he reached the edge of the cliff and looked down, there was indeed an old man below. He called out loudly, "Uncle, are you all right?" The old man was lying half submerged below, trembling slightly, unable to move, only able to utter moans of pain. Seeing the situation, Ma immediately jumped down, landing beside the old man, and then asked about his condition. It turned out one of the old man's legs was trapped between two boulders. Other than that, there were no other injuries. It was just that the pain in his leg made his face pale and he looked exhausted. Seeing this, Ma reassured the old man, telling him to wait a moment while he found a way to help him safely free his leg. After comforting him, he bent down to examine the trapped leg and found that the boulder pressing on it was actually not too heavy. Ma managed to find a fulcrum in the crevice of the rock, then used his hunting rifle to pry forcefully, lifting the rock and creating a gap. When he felt it was secure and the gap was large enough to act, Ma told the old man to quickly pull his leg out. The old man felt the pressure on his leg ease and immediately pulled his leg out. Afterwards, he limped to one side, looking as if a heavy burden had been lifted, but he still seemed to be in considerable pain from the injury. Ma quickly reminded him not to walk around yet so he could bandage the wound. He took out the handkerchief he carried and carefully bandaged the old man's injured leg. Fortunately, the injury was only a scrape and slight swelling. After being bandaged, the old man could slowly walk again, and it didn't look serious. "Young man, this time I really owe it to you, if not four." The old man was moved to tears by Ma's rescue. Ma hurriedly comforted him.
"Uncle, it's good that you're all right. Where are you heading? Let me take you there,"
he asked kindly. The old man said his daughter had married into another village and he had come to visit her because he missed her too much. Unexpectedly, being unfamiliar with the roads, he had fallen off the cliff. Fortunately, Ma's help had saved him from danger. The old man seemed to suddenly remember something, reached into his trouser pocket, took something out and thrust it directly into Ma's hand, telling him to take it. Ma didn't react at first. When he received the object, he immediately felt its weight and realized the old man had given him a boat-shaped gold ingot.
"Uncle, I only did a small thing. I can't accept such a valuable gift.
Ma blushed, hastily pushing the gold ingot back, looking around as if to confirm if anyone else was witnessing this. Seeing the young man before him firmly refusing, the old man also felt a sense of admiration for his righteousness. He glanced around, looking left and right, as if to make sure no one else was nearby. However, the old man leaned close to Ma and whispered a secret that stunned him with surprise. This gold ingot was also something he had chanced upon. It turned out the old man was unfamiliar with the mountain paths, so while looking for his daughter's house, he had gotten lost and didn't know how to get out. While wandering in the mountains, the old man accidentally discovered a hidden cave deep inside which contained a hoard of treasure. The gold ingot he had on him was just one of a few scattered outside. A whole chest full of gold was too heavy for him to carry, so he had taken a few loose ingots and left the place. Meeting Ma, the old man felt it was fate, so he revealed the secret, proposing that if they retrieved the treasure, he only needed a small share, and the rest would go to Ma as a reward for saving his life. Although Ma still felt doubtful seeing the real gold ingot in the old man's hand and thinking that he was familiar with this area yet had never heard of any such cave, he wondered if there truly was a place with such earth-shattering treasure. Thinking this, Ma agreed to let the old man lead the way to the cave he described. The old man led Ma deep into the forest. The path they took was not a familiar trail, but dense bushes where no human foot had ever trod. Yet, the old man walked with great confidence. It was unclear how he remembered the way to the cave so well. Ma was feeling strange when suddenly the grass in front of them thinned out, and they arrived at a large clearing. Right in the middle of this clearing was a cave there. Really was a cave there. Ma couldn't help but be astonished to learn there was a real cave here. He had never discovered it before. Now it was clear the old man hadn't made it up. The old man turned back and told Ma to quickly follow him. The treasure was inside. Since there was indeed a cave, Ma had no reason not to go in and see. The cave was not large, the passage even a bit narrow. The old man went first, leading the way, and Ma followed. They hadn't gone far when Ma saw a faint light flickering from within the cave. Inside the cave was another spacious clearing. He never expected this place to be a cave open to the sky. It was truly strange that no one knew of such a place, he marveled silently. However, although the cave was already very bright, it was strange that torches were mounted on the cave walls for illumination. Thinking about the possibility that there might be other people in the cave, Ma suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. When he looked inside, he saw a large, very strange-looking black pool deep within the cave. His gaze finally settled at the far end of that pool. There, a wooden chest filled with gold and silver, the gold coins glittering brightly under the torchlight. Their light possessing a strange allure completely captivated him. The old man, seeing Ma standing there dazed, hurriedly gave him a push and gestured for him to go get the gold. The old man said that when he came here, he didn't see anyone, but he wasn't sure if there was anyone else in this cave. Therefore, they had to take the gold and leave quickly. If they delayed, he feared something bad might happen. Ma felt the old man's words were very reasonable. He quickly walked towards the chest, but the black water was an obstacle. Ma didn't think much and just plunged into the water. When he reached the middle of the black water, he realized it wasn't water but a thick, tar-like liquid. And each step he took became heavier, until finally he couldn't move anymore. Suddenly, he felt an intense pain shoot up from the soles of his feet, extending all the way to his forehead, as if something was invading his body. He began to convulse. The pain immediately vanished, replaced by a spreading numbness throughout his body, and the feeling of dizziness in his head grew stronger. Ma realized the dangerous situation. This water was problematic, so he tried to turn back and call for the old man's help. But what he saw was a different face of the old man, not the lonely and helpless expression from before. The old man's face wore a thin smile, appearing malicious and sinister, his eyes full of greed. Gradually, that face became blurry. Ma felt his vision darken, and he lost consciousness from that moment. When Ma woke up again, he found himself trapped in the black water. Fortunately, Dr. Chan appeared in time, otherwise he would not have been able to escape. After speaking, both fell into silence. Dr. Chan, having heard the other's account, naturally understood everything that had happened, and Ma also felt in his heart that something was wrong. Fear made him tremble uncontrollably. Then he began to cough violently. During a few strong coughs, he was horrified to discover he had coughed up a mouthful of black blood. At this moment, Ma, in the old man's form, looked tired, his steps unsteady, his body leaning as if about to fall. Dr. Chan hurriedly stepped forward, extending his arms to support him. He let Ma lean against a large tree to calm down, then told him to extend his hand so he could check his pulse. Instantly, Dr. Chan's heart sank. This person's pulse was very weak, as if he didn't have long to live. Furthermore, the symptom of coughing up blood just now was caused by lung disease, which further aggravated the body's health condition. But at this moment, the doctor couldn't clearly explain his physical condition to him, fearing that if Ma knew, he would bear too heavy a psychological burden. So, he tried to comfort him, telling him not to worry too much and to relax his mind. He promised he would definitely find a way to help him regain his body. Comfort was comfort, but time could not be delayed. Firstly, it was already getting dark, and they couldn't sleep in the forest. Secondly, the old man's body could not be delayed any longer. They absolutely had to quickly help Ma's soul reclaim his body. Due to exhaustion for most of the remaining journey, Dr. Chan had to carry him, so their travel speed was very slow. By the time they reached his home village, it was already past 10 o'clock at night, and houses with lights still on were rare. Under the old man's guidance, the two finally arrived at Ma's house. It was a fairly well-built house located at the end of the village. Pushing open the courtyard gate and stepping inside, they could see that the house was completely dark. It seemed the family had already gone to bed. Seeing the door was closed, they both decided to approach the window for a better view. The moment he saw the scene inside, the old man's eyes widened in shock, as if he had been dealt a heavy blow. Before them, another, false Ma, was sleeping with his wife on the earthen bed. Both were sound asleep. Seeing this, the old man was so enraged he gritted his teeth. He immediately picked up an axe from the courtyard, looking determined to rush in and hack the false Ma in the house to death. "Ma, calm down." Dr. Chan, seeing the situation was not good, hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. He knew that anyone seeing such a scene would find it hard to remain rational. "The body in that room is yours. Do you still want to get it back or not?" Dr. Chan quickly intervened. If the old man acted now, it would be tantamount to destroying his only chance to reclaim his body. Dr. Chan advised that the wife knew nothing of what was happening. If he acted rashly in her eyes, the old man would only be a cold-blooded murderer who killed her husband to steal his wife. The old man gritted his teeth, trying to swallow his anger, and sighed. Though his heart was full of indignation, at this moment He truly had no way to deal with the one occupying his body. He asked Dr. Chan how to catch the imposter and not let him get away with it so easily. Dr. Chan realized they couldn't stay here long. The urgent matter was to settle the old man first before planning the next step. He said this matter needed long-term planning and couldn't be rushed, and then the two left. At that time, he sought out an old acquaintance in the village named La. Just as La had returned home, he was surprised and asked Dr. Chan why he was still out so late. After Dr. Chan recounted the whole story, La nodded without hesitation and agreed to let the old man stay at his house. Hearing this, the doctor was relieved and went home. The next morning, Dr. Chan left his house early and quietly hid near Ma's house, listening for any activity and waiting for something to happen. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, Ma came out of the house carrying a hoe, apparently intending to go to the fields to work. Dr. Chan silently followed behind. As soon as he reached the field, he began to work. His hoeing movements were very proficient, nothing unusual. After a while, feeling tired, he sat down to rest under the shade of a tree. Just after taking a sip of water, he saw Dr. Chan approach to strike up a conversation. Dr. Chan introduced himself and then asked him for directions to the village head's house. He wanted to go there for a medical visit but didn't know the address. Speaking of Dr. Chan, even if they had never met, the surrounding villagers had all heard his name. But Ma's reaction clearly showed he didn't recognize him. He asked if this was his first time coming here to treat patients and then pointed in the direction of the village head's house. Dr. Chan pretended that he had come to treat village head Tian's wife for a cold, but in reality, the village head of this village was named Li, not Tian. But this Ma showed no reaction. He smiled and said that the village roads were indeed difficult to navigate, so it was easy to get lost on the first visit. It was clear the person in front of him knew nothing about this village. After a few probes, Dr. Chan was completely certain that the person before him was not the real Ma. But after testing him, he couldn't take any action. In broad daylight, anything he did would only make the other party more vigilant. Dr. Chan knew well that the breakthrough in this matter did not lie with the Ma imposter. He had thought carefully all night and already had a plan in mind. Leaving Ma's place, Dr. Chan went straight to his house and saw his wife washing clothes in the courtyard. As soon as he entered, Dr. Chan put on an extremely worried expression, saying that Ma had fainted in the field, urging the wife to quickly run and see. The wife, upon hearing her husband was in trouble, became frantic, urging Dr. Chan to quickly lead her to her husband. Being too anxious, she immediately dropped the work she was doing and followed Dr. Chan out of the house. But Dr. Chan did not take her to the field, but instead led her to his friend's house where the old man was hidden. As soon as the woman entered the house, she anxiously looked around for her husband, but apart from an old man with white hair and age spots, she saw no one else in the room. The old man's face was pale. He silently stared at her, tears welling in his eyes, as if he had something to say but couldn't bring himself to speak. The girl glared at Dr. Chan, angrily asking why he kept saying her husband was in trouble. So where was he now? Dr. Chan pointed forward, his eyes solemn, saying that her husband was the person sitting in front of her. The wife immediately became furious, feeling as if she were being made a fool of. She pointed at Dr. Chan's face, scolding him for joking about such a matter, then turned to leave. Just then a voice sounded from behind the woman. Her whole body trembled. This name, Ali. Only her husband called her that. How did this old man know it? Seeing his wife stop, as if there was still a glimmer of hope, the old man hurriedly continued. He recounted the whole story of how he had gone up the mountain yesterday and been deceived by a villain. His soul had been swapped, and he was now trapped in this old body while his own body was occupied by someone else. He feared that beast would do something indecent to her. The woman listened in silence, her expression blank. The words were too outlandish. Even if the old man could recount private family matters flawlessly, it was still too hard to believe that he claimed to be her husband. The woman had no more patience. She turned and left the house, leaving the old man's dry cough echoing in the air. Dr. Chan hurriedly chased after her, trying to stop her to explain one last time. However, Ali appeared very annoyed. She didn't want to hear any more. She didn't have time to listen to such nonsense. He knew that making the woman believe this truth was extremely difficult, so he didn't continue to force her to accept it immediately. Instead, he advised her to go home and try to find out for herself if her husband was still the same as before. After hearing Dr. Chan's words, the woman became even more impatient, her attitude unchanged from before. In particular, she became more convinced that he was deceiving her, which made her angrier. She even told Dr. Chan not to waste his breath and to stay away from her. After a tirade of complaints, the girl turned and left. Dr. Chan watched the woman's receding figure and sighed. Perhaps whether Ma could regain his body still depended on fate. By dusk, the false Ma, after a hard day's labor, finally returned home. He had worked very hard today. The wife, seeing her husband return, as usual approached him gently, took the farming tools from his hands and put them away. A table of hot food with many delicious dishes had been prepared by the wife, waiting for her husband to return from work to eat. After a long day of hard labor, Ma's stomach was rumbling with hunger. As soon as he sat down at the table, he began to eat ravenously. The wife initially intended to tell her husband about the strange things she had experienced during the day, but on second thought, he had been tired all day and probably didn't want to hear such things. So she thought about how her husband had gone hunting yesterday but returned with nothing. She urged him to go hunting in the mountains soon, as it had been a long time since she had eaten wild game. Unexpectedly, Ma reacted unusually, even a little impatiently. He said he was busy with farm work all day and had no time to go hunting in the mountains, even directly asking his wife to give up this idea. This unusual reaction made the wife suddenly remember Dr. Chan's warning from earlier in the day. The doctor had said to pay attention to her husband's actions. She began to pay attention to him, silently observing. Upon closer reflection, she realized many strange things in her husband's recent actions that she hadn't noticed before. For example, her husband usually had the habit of taking a cold bath in the courtyard before eating, but today he sat down at the table immediately. Or her husband usually chatted happily with her during meals, but today he was silent, not saying a word. She thought, and the more she thought, the stranger it felt. She decided to test her husband. She began to mention that her second uncle had repaid the money. She said he had come today and paid back all 100 kilograms of grain. She had put it in the storeroom. However, she deliberately said the number was 100 instead of 150. Her husband was usually very meticulous about managing the family's finances. He would certainly not forget loans and would occasionally mention urging her second uncle to repay the debt. Yet, when he heard her say this, he didn't notice the difference at all. He just mumbled that it was good, it was repaid. The more she thought, the more uneasy she felt. A sense of foreboding arose. She remembered the old man she had met during the day. Although his face was aged, every gesture, every word was exactly like her husband's. By these, she secretly thought, could it be? What he said was true? That thought made her even more uneasy. Goosebumps rose all over her body as she faced the person she was no longer sure was her husband. She trembled slightly and hesitantly asked, "What's wrong with you these past few days? You seem like you've lost your soul." At this moment, her husband was eating. Being constantly questioned by her, he felt annoyed. He slammed his hand on the table, his face angry, irritated that his wife kept asking such ridiculous questions. The wife, seeing her husband like this, was completely stunned. Her husband normally treated her very gently and had never lost his temper, but today he suddenly flew into a rage. She couldn't hold back. Tears began to fall, and she stood to one side, sobbing. Seeing his wife cry, instead of calming down, he became even angrier, his voice roaring with fury. "What are you crying for? Shut up and let me eat in peace." The atmosphere in the house immediately became extremely tense and frightening. He saw a bamboo broom in the corner of the house. Without hesitation, he grabbed the broom, raised it high, and swung it hard at his wife. She didn't have time to dodge and instinctively raised her hands to shield herself. The broom swung up and struck her arm, causing her to scream in pain and hurriedly step aside. Ma still refused to stop, continuing his aggression. He roared, "Today, I'll definitely let you know who's the master in this house." Just as he was about to hit his wife again, a very loud kick on the door from behind unexpectedly interrupted him. The main door was kicked open, and Dr. Chan and his close friend rushed in. The old man stood right behind them but didn't enter, just stood at the door, silently observing. The loud noise made Ma stop in surprise. He turned his head to see who was coming. These two clearly had no good intentions. He knew they were here for him, and he was no match for them. Recognizing the situation, he hurriedly threw the broom to the ground, intending to escape through the back door. Unexpectedly, his close friend named La was very quick and had already blocked the back door, waiting like prey in a trap. Dr. Chan also didn't hesitate. While he was fumbling for a way to escape, he immediately stepped forward and kicked him hard in the back. Ma staggered, fell headlong to the ground, his face hitting the hard earth. His head was dizzy and empty. His whole body lay flat on the ground, unable to get up. The fall immediately silenced him, making him much more docile, no longer as aggressive as before. La, seeing he was no longer resisting, pulled out a rope. It really took a bit of a beating for him to behave. Then he tied his hands securely behind his back, giving him no chance to escape. The false Ma, tied up tightly and knowing he couldn't escape, began to shout for help from the only person he thought could help him, his wife. The woman looked at her swollen arm, cowering in the corner of the wall, saying nothing. Clearly, she had realized that this man, who was currently like a wild beast, was no longer her husband. And the old man stood at the door. He had observed everything, looking at his wife with great pity. He really wanted to step forward and comfort her, but he was afraid of frightening her again, so he just stood there waiting. Dr. Chan, seeing the situation, reminded La to quickly gag the false Ma, because if he kept shouting like this and the neighbors heard, it would ruin their next plan. Afterwards, the two of them began to get busy in Ma's backyard, preparing for the next step. The false Ma was tied tightly to a tree in the backyard. While Dr. Chan went to prepare the materials, La began to dig a pit right in front of the tree. They dug to about half a person's depth. After finishing the first pit, they continued to dig an identical one about 3 meters away. When both pits were completed, Dr. Chan took out 2 bowls, each filled with more than half a bowl of dog's blood. Dr. Chan poured all the dog's blood from the bowls into the 2 earthen pits, not leaving a single drop, as if about to perform a strange ritual. Then he called La to place the two men into the pits, one by one facing each other. One was the real Ma, whose body had been possessed. The other was the false Ma, who was the old man originally owning that body. Then they filled in the earth, leaving only their upper bodies exposed above the ground. Dr. Chan stepped forward, took out silver needles, and inserted them into the corresponding acupoints on each person, then used red thread to connect the tails of the silver needles. After that, they dug a shallow trench as a connecting path between the two men and then sprinkled chicken blood fully into the trench. Everything was prepared. At this moment, Dr. Chan walked behind the false Ma, holding a knife in his hand. He bent down and made 2 long cuts on both sides of his shoulders, causing him sudden pain, though he couldn't cry out. Immediately after, he took out a cloth bag, reached in, and pulled out a handful of snow-white powder. Dr. Chan sprinkled the white powder into the open wounds on his shoulders. It was actually just salt, an extremely common substance, but believed by folk tradition to be able to expel evil spirits. He hoped to use this method to force the soul out of Ma's body, creating an opportunity for his true soul to return to its own body. In an instant, the false Ma's eyes bulged, his expression becoming ferocious. Because his mouth was tightly gagged, only a deep, guttural growl could be heard emanating from his throat. However, this method did not bring about a clear effect. It could be seen that the soul in Ma's body seemed to want to escape, but would only partially emerge before retracting, refusing to separate completely. Each time the soul attempted to escape like this, Dr. Chan would sprinkle more salt. He repeated this several times without any significant change. At this moment, Dr. Chan turned to look at the old man opposite him and was immediately startled with horror. The old man's face was deathly pale, his eyeballs rolled back, devoid of any vitality, looking as if he were dying on the verge of death. Seeing such a critical situation, Dr. Chan hurriedly ran to the old man's side, bent down and shouted loudly into his ear, trying to awaken his spirit, not letting him give up on life. Dr. Chan repeatedly shouted loudly, "Hang on, just one last step." But it seemed all efforts were in vain. The old man's eyes drooped, his breathing faint, as if he had begun to lose consciousness. Just when things were hanging by a thread, Dr. Chan immediately took out a black medicinal pill from his chest. He used his hand to open the old man's mouth and put the black pill inside. Fortunately, the medicinal pill worked. The old man regained consciousness, and his face even showed a little color. Dr. Chan seriously told Ma to listen carefully. He feared this soul-snatching attempt would not succeed because the black pill he had just taken could only prolong his life. Speaking of this, he continued, prolonging his life was only because Dr. Chan wanted to ask an important question. Would he agree to destroy his former body, the one currently occupied by another soul? The old man looked towards his struggling body, tears falling without saying a word, just silently nodding. That was his agreement, accepted, letting Dr. Chan kill his own body. Afterwards, Dr. Chan turned around and took out a silver needle. The tip of the needle was black, clearly not an ordinary object. Dr. Chan's face was grim at this moment, his eyes filled with a murderous aura, something never before seen in this physician. Next, the words he spoke made the false Ma break out in a cold sweat. He said there wasn't enough time to complete the ritual anymore. This time, it was indeed impossible to successfully swap the souls, but he would absolutely not let the evildoer go unpunished. Since the real Ma's soul couldn't be saved, his body no longer had a reason to exist. After speaking, the first silver needle was inserted into an acupoint on the false Ma. He immediately felt intense pain, the blue veins on his forehead clearly visible. Dr. Chan didn't stop, immediately pulling out a second silver needle and inserting it into the symmetrical acupoint. When he pulled out the third needle, Dr. Chan coldly said these 3 needles would be inserted into 3 fatal acupoints on him. The silver needles were coated with poison. Once the third needle was inserted, he would die instantly. He bent down and said his final words to the false Ma. "Rest in peace." With that, Dr. Chan inserted the third silver needle into his body. The villain never expected Dr. Chan to be so ruthless, killing someone as if it were a daily occurrence. When the third silver needle pierced him, he immediately sensed an unprecedented mortal danger. Instinct urged him to immediately escape this body. Only then, were the false Ma's eyes seen to turn completely white, and a thin wisp of white smoke began to rise from the top of his head. Just then, Dr. Chan turned his head and shouted loudly towards the treetop behind, "Quick! Now is the time, do it!" From the tree, a figure suddenly appeared. It turned out to be La, who had been hiding there for a long time, just waiting for the right moment to act. La jumped down, holding a large burlap sack in his hand. Then he immediately threw it straight over the false Ma's head. The wisp of white smoke that had just emerged was also caught inside the bag. Dr. Chan quickly stepped forward and used a string of peachwood prayer beads to seal the mouth of the bag. A few pomelo leaves were interspersed between the beads. The burlap sack immediately bulged, and even 2 handprints became clearly visible on the sides of the bag, as if something inside was struggling to escape. The sight stunned even La. Not long after, the struggling in the bag gradually subsided, and the bag deflated back to its original state, drooping limply. Seeing that everything had truly quieted down again, Dr. Chan turned and signaled La to open the bag. Next, he turned and walked towards the old man, where the real Ma's soul resided. He told him to spit out the black pill in his mouth. Everything was done, and now he could return to his own body. Following Dr. Chan's words, the old man spat out the black pill. The old man's complexion immediately turned deathly pale, his breath ceasing in an instant. Only wisps of white smoke were seen rising from his body. Seeing this, Dr. Chan calmly picked up the broom and began to sweep along the pre-dug trench, constantly muttering that the spirit path was cleared. Follow the sweeping broom. The smoke, as if understanding his words, obediently did exactly as he instructed, flying along behind the path of the doctor's broom. Upon reaching Ma's body, the smoke then slipped into the earthen pit containing that body. Then all fell silent again. Ma's body remained stiff and still, showing no signs of a body with a soul. About half an hour later, Ma's body began to stir. He slowly opened his eyes. He looked at everyone, stammering Dr. Chan's name. Dr. Chan, seeing this, immediately dug the earth around Ma and pulled him out of the pit. Ma, seeing the doctor and remembering the previous dangers, knew that his life had been saved by him. Tears streamed down and he knelt on the ground, unwilling to get up. Dr. Chan, seeing this, called Ma's wife over and explained everything from beginning to end to her. By now, the wife understood everything. The couple reunited. The grievances and hardships needed no further words. When everyone had calmed down, Dr. Chan began to tell them about the evildoer in the forest. This villain had probably lived for over 100 years. Each time his body weakened and was about to die, he would set traps, deceiving young people passing by, taking over their bodies, and thus living on day after day. This could be clearly seen from the white skeleton in the black water. As for the origin of the black water, the doctor was also unsure. It might be an ancient art long lost, and this villain certainly possessed some magic, otherwise He could not have succeeded repeatedly like that. Fortunately, this time they had finally eliminated him, cleansing the environment for the surrounding villagers. Before leaving, Dr. Chan advised Ma and his wife to bury the old man's body in the courtyard and perform a memorial service so that everything could come to an end. Dr. Chan also warned Ma to learn his lesson. Nothing in this world is free. Don't let money cloud your judgment, as momentary greed is often the beginning of disaster.